I can't charge whatever I want. I can only market there. Lack of supply. Well, we have so much government interference and so many regulations that it's very difficult to build things here. And that suppresses supply. And then people are fighting over the little bit of supply that's left. Rent control exacerbates the situation. The reason there have been a lot of reports on this, there are 30,000 vacant units in San Francisco, in a place where my daughter rents an apartment, $4,000 is about the size of this table. And the reason people aren't going to rent out those apartments, that they have 30,000 units and make that kind of money, is because of all the tenant laws and the rent control laws, where you can't get people out once they're in your building laws, where you can't get people out once they're in your building because they some of the problems and the bureaucracies that are created. You know that the head of the Berkeley rent board earns $300,000 a year. So that my point is, we're not going to get rid of those boards. Rent control 10 would just encourage more of those boards, more of those little fiefdoms to come up. So I'm out of time. Thank you for having me.
The pro advocate team up. The timer's going.
Okay, hello again. I'll just start first by saying thank you for spending so much time to really try to understand the issue that Prop 10 is seeking to address. We are looking for ways to create a California where everyone has access to a safe and affordable place to live. Instead of a California that we're living in now, which is home to the highest rent in the country, which by the United Way shows education, displacement, deep poverty, and homelessness. You know, to say it differently, there is a broader housing problem, and that there are not enough units to house the population of the state. But it will take decades and tens of billions of dollars to build the number of units that the state needs. Propositions 1 and 2 are working to chip away at that problem, but that does little to protect those at risk of displacement and homelessness today. We must act now if we want to protect the racial and income diversity of California's urban centers, as well as the state as a whole. That is the problem that Prop 10 is seeking to address. I know you've heard me say this a couple of times over the last 2 days, but I will say it one final time. Prop 10 is a simple measure designed to empower local communities to address skyrocketing rent increases in the way they best see fit. It does that by repealing the Costa-Hawkins Rental Housing Act, which places restrictions on rent control units. Prop 10 does not institute rent control anywhere. It does not create hundreds of rent boards. It doesn't create even one rent board. It makes a broader range of options available to those communities who want them. None of the doomsday scenarios the opposition campaign puts forward has borne out historically. Development rates in rent-controlled cities are as high or higher than their non-rent controlled regional partners, and the notion that homeowners will sell is really up to the homeowner. But I will remind you again that landlords are guaranteed a fair rate of return that will cover all of their costs of maintaining the property plus a profit. That is a guarantee by the California state constitution, and no rent control policy can take that guarantee away. Guaranteed a profit. I know that propositions can be tricky. Even someone like me who's been in the world of policy and elections for a long time, when I was on maternity leave in 2016, I found the commercials to be very confusing. And in those instances, I really relied on the organizations that I trust to help me determine, how I should vote. I looked at who was in support and who was in opposition to help me really parse through where I might land. To that end, this proposition is supported by the Nurses Association, both teachers associations, the public sector workers, the California Democratic Party, the League of Women Voters, faith-based organizing groups, tenants' rights groups, housing advocates, and even landlords and property owners. By contrast, those funding the No campaign are corporate and Wall Street landlords. I know I was called out earlier for continuing to raise the role of those types of landlords in particular, But even if they own a seemingly small share of the market, that still amounts to tens of thousands of properties that they are making exorbitant profits up from, both apartments and single-family homes alike. It's not the small landlords who are pouring millions to defeat this initiative. It's those corporate and Wall Street landlords, some of whom aren't even based in this state, who are extracting millions from California renters while the state is having to deal with the repercussions of having the highest poverty rate in the nation. I don't think owning property and leasing it for profit is evil. There will always be those who cannot afford to own a home, so that arrangement is necessary. I do believe it's evil to profit handsomely off of the displacement and impoverishment of our state's vulnerable populations. What we are seeking is a rebalancing of the relationship between those who are fortunate enough to own housing and those who are not. Why not let local communities decide what works best for them to achieve that balance? I'll close today in the same way I closed yesterday, which is to say that in California, we have the opportunity to take a big step forward now, and it's a critical component of our housing crisis. Not the only component, but a critical one. By putting Proposition 10, hearing voice to call home. Thank you.
Right, thank you. Okay. So lots and lots of information shared with lots of questions of debriefing just a moment ago. So before we leave today, you have an opportunity to develop new claims of those that were given to you upfront to process and think through and ask that are not already on set. Do this, we've got minutes to develop these tomorrow. So this is really just getting the concepts up there. They don't have to be sentences, but really just the concept that you believe isn't already included in your packet of information or claims that are already existing. And Dylan will just try to get those up there quickly, and tomorrow you'll have more time to process those. So there are some. So if I saw Tim's card go up once first, Rose F, Michelle, and Mike. And if I could get one of the assistant moderators to help with the tracking. And, oh, Mike. So Tim.
So I would make the first claim. Proposition 10 does not create, outright does not create rent control policies or rental boards. But merely gives the option to local municipalities.
Okay, we'll give a second to catch up on that. Does not create rent control policies or rental boards, but merely gives the option to local municipalities. Okay, all right. Mike.
Yes, Prop 10 guarantees renters a fair expectation of annual rent increases.
Question. Oh, say it again, please.
Proposition 10 guarantees or provides renters a fair expectation or knowledge of rent increases, annual rent increases. So as counter to the homeowner that is under Proposition 13, they know what their taxes are going to go up every year. Proposition 10 does now let the renter know how much they're going to have to pay in rent increase.
Okay, so Prop 10 guarantees or provides renters a fair expectation or knowledge of annual rent increases. Yep. Okay, Michelle?
I was going to say that actually, not that, but it gives them, it's a segue for renters to have a platform and maybe possibly a voice that they haven't had historically.
Can you repeat
Could
that?
you repeat your claim?
No. Michelle, repeat. Then we're going to go to Rose, or yeah, then to Vic, to Rose, and then back to Shirley.
Prop 10 would give renters a platform, or possibly a platform or and a voice that they had lacked in the past, where homeowners have that.
No pressure, Dylan. Okay, so Prop 10 would give renters a platform that they have lacked in the past. Okay. Rose,
Mine isn't so much a statement as a thought. The words and vocabulary that we struggled with, gentrification, fair market value, need to be clear to the person reading it.
so this is, appreciate the comment, and this is a chance for you to introduce what you think is information that the voters should know. So it sounds like that is important. So could you put it into, is it defining those terms or? Say, can you say
you
it in
repeat-
the form of a
repeat that in the
concept
form
that
of a
you want,
statement?
you think might be critical for sharing? We'll come back to you? Okay, we'll come back. Vic,
Proposition 10 does not fix the housing crisis in California.
Proposition 10, let him get it up there.
Proposition 10 does not fix or solve the housing crisis in California.
Prop 10 outright does not
Or-
address house or supply and demand.
Is that your claim?
No.
No, okay, so let's let Vic say in his words
Uh,
the concept, and then if you want to add one, Michael, you can get your name in the queue.
Proposition 10 does not fix the housing crisis in California completely.
Completely, okay? Add the mic, can we pass that?
Prop 10 promotes neighborhood stabilization.
Prop 10 promotes neighborhood stabilization. Is that your, okay. Michael,
All right. You could start out with like the top one. Prop 10 outright does not address supply and demand.
Prop 10 outright does not address supply and demand. Okay, Steve?
Was the comment on gentrification and fair market value withdrawn?
She's working on it.
I think, I have a comment on that. We don't know the language of Prop 10. I think we have to know what the language is before we either define it. Maybe we don't need to define the gentrification if it's not in the language of Prop 10.
The claims that you went through is the pool of information that's been given to you to work with as
So we
pieces of information. So your job is to work with that, do something with that, and or add new stuff to that. And this is chance to kind of add new stuff.
So that we assume those are in Prop 10, or there wouldn't have been a claim in the first place, I guess.
Does anybody else want to talk about, address that? Vic?
Such words gentrification, it's not on Proposition 10 according to the copies that we have, but it's part of the claims being made by the pro and con groups or representatives. So although it's not part of the language in the actual proposition, according to the copies that I have, it's part of the language in the claims made by the pro and con groups. So I think that's where we're coming from
Okay.
with that.
Tim? Or did I?
Someone
Tim.
one of the presenters today mentioned a statistic where they said that rent control units are only a portion of the total number of rentable units. And if anyone has that number, I'd really like to use it in a claim. If anyone remembers what that was.
Does anybody remember that? Or can you find any notes? So can you say it again?
She basically said that there's a number of units that are under rent control versus the total number of units that are either rentable or that exist, and basically to try and unlock that under Costa-Hawkins there are restrictions on how many, because of the types of restrictions on what units can be rented out with rent control. Losing it.
I think she was talking about Berkeley, the ones that were built after 96. And she was saying only half of them are older. Yeah.
So maybe it would be, the claim would be Prop 10 would allow local jurisdictions to determine which types of units, housing units, are available to be under rent control, and possibly expand the total number of rent control units in the city or municipality.
And which types of housing units are available to be under rent control, and possibly expand the number of rent control units in the municipality. Okay. All right, Shirley, microphone.
Thank you. Proposition 10 repeals the Costa-Hawkins Act. Proposition 10 repeals the Costa-Hawkins Act. However, it does not change the current rent control actions that are being taken by rent control actions that cities currently have in place. There you go. No, the cities that currently have rent control boards, it won't change them. Right. So if that's repealed, it just repeals that act, but it doesn't change those who already have rent control boards and that are pre-existing. Yeah.
All right. Prop 10 repeals the Costa-Hawkins Act. However, it does not change the current rent control actions that cities currently have in place.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Mike. Mike, no, he's done. Michael C. And we'll take just a couple more minutes to get these fully
provides an opportunity for local communities to address predatory housing practices.
Prop 10 provides an opportunity for local communities to address predatory housing practices. Okay. Paul.
Proposition 10 is a short-term fix. It's not a long-term solution.
Prop 10 is a short-term fix. It's not a long-term solution. All right, one more. Or Michael, do you still have your card up? Or you okay? Shirley, and then I think we're.
Proposition 10 allows for a process for rents to be raised higher than the stated limit.
Okay, it's hard to see it. If we could scroll just to be able to read it. Prop 10 allows for a process for rents to be raised higher than the stated limit. Okay. All right. Any other burning pieces of information that you really think should be considered for tomorrow in developing claims, new claims? Okay, so nice work, everybody. And it's been a long day. I'm gonna just, while Francis up, I just want to how impressed all day. Really developing thoughtful questions, really scrutinizing this information. So I just want to pat you on the back for all of that work and staying in learning mode. That's hard to do too, and you've been doing it really well. So I just want to congratulate you on the conclusion of day 2 of the CIR. So let's just give each other a round of applause. Yeah. Nice work.
Great. Hey, we're done with day 2. So we are going to review what we did today. Start by analyzing the claims provided by the advocates using the policy analysis questions. See if you remember everything we did and that it was today. Then you develop the questions for the question and answer panels. And then you synthesize the information in your debriefs and you brainstormed concepts for new claims. Sounds like that's what we did. Tomorrow we're going to start with the new claims concept in the morning. You'll choose which of these claims to, are they still there? They're not there. Which of these claims to develop and spend time drafting complete claims. Then all of the claims, your new claims plus the advocate claims, will be edited and improved by you with feedback from each other and from independent experts. Finally, you'll assess the strength and reliability of each claim and sort the strong and reliable claims into the 3 sections of the statement. We'll start tomorrow promptly at 8:30. And before we leave, we do have evaluations. I will not forget that. And while you're passing those out, may I also pass out specific information to each person regarding reimbursement or?
Yes, actually, I have one thing to say.
Okay, I
And
have.
pass those out, but if
as
you're done,
talking,
one that I said earlier this morning, 2 things this morning actually, or one thing, transparency. These are little details that I didn't want to go at night, that numbers on there would never be correlated with your names. That is, and our main researcher, John Gastel, and number, but none of the process staff here in the room knows any of that, and will never know any of that. Thing I want to say is that the independent research, I mistakenly said this morning that you could introduce bits of research sort of independently of that sheet. That's actually incorrect. Any new evidence to be officially submitted to the panel needs to come with that sheet. That's the purpose of it, so that it has that information and so that the documentation comes with it. It's the mechanism for inserting additional evidence into the process, and we very much welcome it. Or most of all, your fellow panelists, we certainly welcome that if anybody wishes to take advantage of that. And this is your last night to do that. Tomorrow morning, after that, any independent research is distributed, that the evidence section of the CIR will be over, and you'll be into working with the evidence that you have. So if you want to introduce any new evidence, this is your last shot. And you need another copy of those forms. Well, I guess nobody submitted one this morning. So we'll all have one copy. But let me know if you've lost a copy of the independent research summary sheet. Okay, thanks.
Okay, hi. Just to remind you, I'm Stephanie Burkhalter. I'm a professor at Humboldt State University working with John Gastel, and we're studying this really really appreciate your participation, and I'm going to be handing out a survey, which is evaluation for day 2. That helps us compare this process to other processes that are going on around the world and in the United States, but it also provides feedback to the staff. So you'll see some areas where you can actually describe what your experience was today. I'm the only one that sees that. I do share summaries with the staff, but I'm the only one that sees your actual evaluation. So just so you know. So I'm going to hand it out now. If you have any questions, you can always ask me. Thank you. I'm going to do it like speed it up. Been working really hard. Yes. Yeah. 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 It's in my written notes, but what happens is I'll look in anything that anyone else sees. So it's just, I'll know, I'll just be able to sometimes, that's right, lying to everyone, but no one will ever see your name. Yep. No one will ever see that. The question was, will anyone ever in the outside world ever be able to correlate your number with your name? No, this is for our study purposes, internal only. And they'll never see it here. Staff will never see it. That's why they have it here. Outside where? It's across the way